Today, I wanna go back in time and show you the very first t-shirt I ever designed and what projects I took on from that point that has led me to having a whole career built around designing merchandise and even having some of my designs in retail stores. So sit back, relax, and let's get into it. So jumping all the way back to 2012 is when I designed my first t-shirt. And at this time, I was only proficient in using Photoshop. I didn't like using Illustrator whatsoever because I just didn't know how to use it. It was totally alien to me. But I knew it was really great for designing logos, vector graphics, and it's something that I knew I needed to learn if I wanted to be a graphic designer. So I was doing a bunch of tutorials, and the way I taught myself how to use the pen tool was just taking a bunch of images and tracing them. So I took a picture of Ashton Kutcher's hair, a bow tie, some thick nerdy glasses, and I typed out the word nerd. And I made this vector graphic, and I thought it could be really fun to have it printed on a t-shirt. So this was totally self-made, just for fun, and a way for me to learn how to use Illustrator, and I had never had my own t-shirt printed, and I thought it'd be fun. So this is what I made. I had this red shirt printed up with the graphic. So this was a very unique feeling for me. Getting to have this printed and holding the shirt in my hand, it triggered this feeling I never experienced before as a designer. I was taking something I made digitally on the computer and bringing it to life into the real world, something I could tangibly hold in my hands. At this time, I was freelancing full time, but I was taking on pretty much everything. You named it, I've probably designed it. But after I had this t-shirt printed, I wanted to do more of it just because it was such a cool feeling to see that come to life. So the next design I did was actually another experiment in Illustrator. This was just me trying to learn to use the software. And it was actually a band t-shirt for the band Hawthorne Heights because my cousin is a friend with a couple of the members from the band. So I thought, what if I made a t-shirt and sent it to them? This was the t-shirt here. It's for their song Ohio's for Lovers, probably one of their most well-known songs. It's not the best design, but when I look at it, this was me experimenting with just different effects, textures, fonts, and layout. This was my first full-on graphic in Illustrator. So I mocked that up and sent it to the guys, and I never heard anything back. And I actually talked about the story a lot more in detail in another video on how I landed my dream clients. So I'll link that in a card if you want to go watch that. But this is relevant to something major that happened in a little bit down the road of this whole timeline of my merch career. So following these two things, I was really dialing in my, for lack of a better word, obsession for designing t-shirts. And so I picked up a book from, at the time, one of my favorite designers, Jeff Finley. It's this book, Threads Not Dead, The Designer's Guide to the Apparel Industry. I cannot tell you how many times I have read this book, especially the first time I got it. I read it all the way through, probably every single day for about a week. And then after that, I was re-referencing it so many times because it was just so full of resources of how to get into the industry, how to design t-shirts, print them. Literally everything you need to know about apparel is covered in this book. So that book inspired me to try and actually print my own t-shirt to sell to people. And this was right around the time of when Kickstarter was starting to blow up. This was 2013, so I took a message that meant something important to me, and it was the stay true message. Stay true in what we believe in, and what we do, and most importantly, who we are. And so I took this and I lettered it in Illustrator, again, another experiment of me trying to learn the software. And I followed the guide in this book that Jeff made, and just went through the steps, and I started a Kickstarter page to basically just pre-sale the t-shirt. Luckily, I just made the goal, and those funds covered the cost for me to print and ship the shirts. And this project alone taught me so much stuff, from coming up with the design, getting it proofed, printed, then getting it all in bulk, getting stickers made, pins made, fulfilling the orders and shipping them by hand to people. And this was that feeling to a whole new level. So not only was I bringing my designs into the real world, I was getting them into the hands of other people. And here's where it kind of connects with that design I did for Hawthorne Heights. I actually shipped one of the shirts to JT, who was the lead singer of the band, and he loved that shirt. And then he actually saw that I did at one point send them a t-shirt design, which he reached out to me and wanted me to design an entire merch line for their upcoming tour. So I worked directly with the band to design an entire merch line, and this blew my mind. I wasn't just designing a t-shirt, but I was designing multiple t-shirts for their whole tour, along with some scrim stage banner designs for them as well. And this was the piece in my portfolio that really fueled me pursuing designing merch full time. So from that moment on, over the next year, I still was taking on just about any kind of design work, but really striving to get these merch projects, which has led me to seeing if people would just buy my design. So on Cotton Bureau, I put up this Caffeine Please t-shirt. And to this day, I think it's sold about over 100 t-shirts, which is really cool. If I get to opening my shop nowadays, I'd probably relaunch this on my own shop just because I love this shirt. I still wear this shirt, and it's just such a simple, cool design. So with these just handful of designs under my belt, I started putting them as the focus on my portfolio, and then I started blogging on my website about how I design merch. So this is sort of my strategy on how to attract more merch clients, and this actually helped me land a lot of more smaller band projects. So I was doing more t-shirts, which was what I wanted, and then I would use those projects to continue to build my portfolio, share on Instagram, and then I would also just design random things and mock them up on t-shirts. So that's what I did all of 2014, trying to put up more t-shirt designs, taking on more small band projects, and letting it fuel my portfolio a bit while also sharing things on my blog about designing t-shirts, putting out videos touching on that, and I'm just trying to create my own luck and attract more client projects. So all of this work helped attract a really big merch project, was designing a t-shirt for InVision App. So they reached out and wanted me to design a t-shirt that took their phrase, design makes anything possible, and come up with my own interpretation for what it means on a t-shirt. So to me, the phrase design makes anything possible is a design can be as simple or complex as possible, but in the end, it connects everyone. So that is sort of what my interpretation of what that phrase meant. So I hand lettered the phrase with a pencil, and I just reiterated it over and over and kept tweaking it until I got something that I really liked, something that was simple, and just the letters kind of really played with each other and fit nicely on the chest. So I put that really big project out there on Instagram, on my blog, as well as a bunch of other designs, and I also made my own t-shirt mock-ups. Since I was making t-shirts, I wanted to make my own mock-ups, and since I found use in them, I put them out there on Creative Market for other designers to also use. I'm just strategically throwing things out there online and hoping that I'm getting my name out in front of the right people. But since I'm focusing everything on t-shirt design, that's who I'm attracting. And these things helped attract a couple really big merch companies. This was me getting my foot actually into the industry of designing apparel. And this is how I was going to make consistent cash flow with my design work. So every project they sent me, I said yes to. At this point, I could not turn them down, but why would I? Because they were basically exactly what I was looking for, designing merch for big artists, touring artists, their web stores, all the way up into designing retail, which we're going to get into very shortly. So one of my first biggest projects was for Andrew McMahon. He needed some new designs for his web store, so I simply took some of his lyrics and came up with the designs. This is one that I talked about in another video of mine about why sketching matters. So where I took a reference photo of a motorcycle, drew it out by hand lettered his name, some lyrics, and then came up with a bunch of color options, and it got approved. Here's where things get really interesting. So from that point on, I was taking on so much merch work with these companies. And these are several companies. And at that point, once I had a really solid portfolio under me, I started reaching out to other companies as well, introducing myself, letting them know that, hey, I know you need a designer that is reliable, can turn around designs in 2 to 3 days, and you have a lot of artists to manage, so let me help you with that if you need it. And luckily, some of them replied back. And so that really boosted my confidence in my abilities as a designer, because basically the only way you're going to get better is by doing an insane amount of work, and that's what I was doing in this time period. So 2017 was actually when I had one of the first opportunities to design merch for one of my absolute dream clients. That's Fall Out Boy and Panic at the Disco and the like. So I got the email to design merch for Panic at the Disco. And this is specifically for retail merch. This wasn't for the web store, it wasn't for a tour. This is anything you can come up with that would make something awesome that people would want to buy. We want to basically see it. So I was freaking out when I got the email, and I accepted it immediately, and I went to town. And I think for this project, I designed 15 plus designs for the single project that was probably due within like a 3-day span. Now, most of these designs and hundreds of other are sitting dead on my hard drive, but there were a couple of designs that got picked up, and it was this one that I'm still in love with today, and it's an Art Deco design for Panic at the Disco. This is the shirt I designed with main head merch for Panic at the Disco, and this was one of the very first designs that I had show up in the actual physical retail stores of Hot Topic, and I believe that design also got repurposed for some socks, which is really cool. And then around that time, I also designed this little kind of washed dyed beanie for Fall Out Boy. So this patch here is just a simple little brush hand lettering thing I did, just a quick little logo, and the art director I worked with at Manhead mocked it up as a patch for a beanie, and Hot Topic picked it up and it was in the stores. The feeling of this is just like, this is why I do it. It's just insane to bring these ideas to life, seeing them in stores, seeing the fans buy them and connect with them. That's why I do what I do. And so the work continued over the years. And then 2018, I designed a t-shirt for Fall Out Boy. This was a retail design and one of my favorites because again, it's a very, very simple design, but this is when I started to experiment more with the garment. When you're designing merch, it's more than just slapping a logo on a black t-shirt. So I took this super simple design for Fall Out Boy and I put it on this really cool kind of purple dyed shirt. And I'll pop up what the mock-up looked like of this that I sent to Mainhead merch. And then again, Hot Topic picked it up. This is probably to this day one of my favorite designs I ever did. For one, it's for Fall Out Boy, which is one of my dream clients. But it's just one of those things where it's super simple. It's my kind of style where it's just simple type, but on a really rad garment. And it turned out so cool. So getting to design stuff for Fall Out Boy and Panic at the Disco is super rad, and I'm always going to accept those projects. But last year in 2019, I started taking on some projects that were for, they're lesser known artists that still have big audiences, but they're not like super mainstream. Some YouTubers and things like that. So I want to quickly go over some of those projects that I worked on more recently. One for Bruce Wiegner. It was for a song, I Don't Know. It's a very simple lyric t-shirt where there's a little pocket design. It says, craving validation. And then on the back, it says, why do I care so much? I don't know. It's super simple. I did some subtle texturing to it, and it's just a very cool, simple lyric t-shirt that I really loved working on with Bruce. And then Bruce linked me up with Scotty Sire, which is really cool because I know Scotty. I watch his videos on YouTube. I watch David Dobrik and all of his friends on there. And he wanted me to help him design some merch for his tour for What's Going On. So he wanted to do a kind of pop art style female face that had a little bit of a surreal vibe to it. So I designed this sort of comic book style for the title What's Going On with the comic pop art female's face framed up close. So you're kind of wondering what's she looking at for the What's Going On. That's sort of the surreal vibe that I'm portraying here. And then on the back, it's just some simple tour dates for it. And finally, one of my more recent favorite projects was something I did for Lindsey Stirling. She came out with a new album, Artemis, and they built this whole cool like fantasy story world around it. And I personally fell in love with that. So getting to work with these incredible assets and this illustration of Artemis and coming up with merch was so fun. I came up with this long sleeve t-shirt that had some lyrics and symbols from her music video on the pocket here, along with a sleeve print that says Strong Enough. And then this very kind of streetwear inspired design for the back that has a bunch of lyrics from her song and some logos. On here, her name is nowhere big to be seen. It's very small at the bottom on the back. Lindsey actually commented on my Instagram post saying that this is one of her favorite designs she's ever had because it's not her face big and large on the front. Her name isn't very prominent on it, so it became one of her favorite merch designs and something that she personally wore all the time while she was on tour. And that is such an incredible feeling and sort of the validation of that I'm doing an okay job. Okay, well, that was a trip down memory lane. And that is only a very small select few. I have a few more shirts in my little personal collection in my closet, but those were very important in sort of my whole timeline of how I started with this very, very crappy experimental design in Illustrator and how that turned into the first merch project and then eventually leading to a bunch of my own dream client projects. I've been wanting to make this video for so long. I hate to toot my own horn, but I've just really been wanting to show off all these really cool t-shirts. It's why I love this stuff. And so I hope sharing the story sort of behind them with you and showing you the snowball effect of all this over the last oh god, it's like basically a decade of me doing this stuff. Hopefully you found that interesting, and if you made it this long, because I have no idea how long this video is going to be, but if you've made it this far, you are truly a real one. Before I end this video, I think for the next one, I just want to chill, relax, do a Q&A. So let me know in the comments below any questions you have, whether it be about designing merch, running a freelance business, working from home, literally anything you can ask. I will try to answer as best as I can. So with that, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. It really does help. And if you aren't already, consider subscribing. It's totally free. That's all I got for you. You know the drill. It's time we get back to work.